time stands still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder, we're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning, Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder, we're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder, we're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder, we're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
There we are. Wow, it almost got it on perfect time zone there. Excellent. I rarely ever get that clip right. All right, well, welcome to the show. Let's get this going. And we have Marcus Burnette with us, and let's start this off. And I need this. Off we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for WordPress plugins A to Z, not Z.
It's interview 82 in this episode of WP Plugins A to Z, and we talk with Marcus Burnette, founder of WellPlayedWP and longtime WordPress community contributor. He's going to be sharing why he built a single license membership library and more, all coming up on WordPress Plugins from A to Z. WordPress, the king of content management systems, powering the web with over 80,000 plugins to choose from. How do you sort the junk from the gems? Welcome to WP Plugins A to Z, where we've been keeping the pulse of WordPress alive for over 16 incredible years. Join us every week for an unrehearsed, real talk breakdowns of the latest and greatest plugins, developer and community member interviews. Some weeks, Amber and I team up to dig in. Others, I'm flying solo, unpacking WordPress news, demoing a standout plugin, or sharing tips to power up your site. No scripts, no fluff, just the good stuff from A to Z. So plug in and let's get rolling. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, where you be hiding out there on the globe today. Coming to you direct from the brewery overlooking beautiful southern Vancouver Island. And this is interview number 82, where we're going to do a deep dive into the world of WordPress innovation and developer stories. This episode, we have Marcus Burnette, a longtime WordPress community member, plugin developer, and founder of WellPlayedWP. Marcus has spent years in the ecosystem as a developer, support engineer, field marketer, and now senior manager of strategy and customer experience at Bluehost. He also created and runs the WP World, contributes to WordPress.org across plugins and the photo directory, and continues building practical tools for real site builders. In this show, he's going to walk us through why he launched a membership library of focused WordPress, WooCommerce, and Elementor utility plugins under a single license, how he decides which ideas are worth shipping, and what he's learning while growing a toolkit designed to cut plugin headaches for freelancers and agencies. Wow, that was a mouthful. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the show, Marcus. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. We didn't get a chance to chat before the show, but what the heck? We'll just raw dog this one.
Sounds great, John. Thanks for having me. That was a mouthful. That sounds like I'm doing a lot of stuff.
You are. It sounds like when someone reads my bio, they think, do you sleep? And I say, no, yeah, I sleep a lot. My bio lies about me. It's basically how I put it, so...
My bio is technically true, but it definitely comes in waves. Sometimes I'm working on one thing, sometimes I'm working on the other. It's hard to keep all of those things going continuously at the same time.
Oh yeah. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to start out with a little bit of background for our listeners out there that I don't think there's very few people in the WordPress community that don't know who you are, because your name has been pounded around for years. And but for those that don't know enough, well, let's talk a little bit about your path from agency freelance dev to SkyVerge, GoDaddy Pro, then Bluehost. How did you take that kind of path, and what led you to it?
All right, yeah, we'll go way back. So I always wanted to do something in computer aided graphic design. So design is actually my first passion. That'll be the thing that I always fall back to, the thing that always matters the most to me. How do things look, the UI, the UX of it. I just love design. And so I started there quite a number of years ago, before that was really a big thing. It was, at that time, I told my parents I wanted to do something in graphic design. And they said, what are you going to do with that? That's not going anywhere. That's how long ago it was. So that was in college. I did do digital media in college, which was kind of a catch-all for anything that had to do with video or the web or graphic design, because it was all not brand new, but pretty new at the time. And so went to school for digital media. And then when I graduated, I started at a small agency here in the Orlando area. When I say small, I was like number 3 or number 4. Mm-hmm. And we actually stayed about that size for the whole 10 or so years that I was there. A few people came and went, but we stayed under 10 roughly the whole time. And so I started, I came in, I did some graphic stuff. I learned a little bit more about the web and what we could do. That was around the time that CMSs started to become a thing and become popular. And we actually, as an agency, decided to go with Drupal. And so we did Drupal for a few years there, before Drupal decided to go a more enterprise, different direction. And we reevaluated and went WordPress. And so that's how I ended up there. Nice. Because our agency was so small, we all wore a number of hats, and I really was able to grow my developer skill set while I was at the agency. And so I ended my tenure at the agency as a senior designer, senior developer, trying to figure out what was next. And what I wanted to do was, instead of work at an agency, I wanted to help lots of other agencies with their work. And so I joined the SkyVerge team. For those that are unaware of SkyVerge is now owned by GoDaddy, which is how I ended up there at some point. But a company that has 60 or so WooCommerce extensions that they offer. And so I joined the support team there so I could help other agencies with their WooCommerce issues. And so started there, ended up getting acquired by GoDaddy, and then used kind of that opportunity to pivot from waiting for agencies and freelancers to reach out to us to being a little bit more community focused and doing outreach and jumping into the community. So that was my kind of foray into the WordPress community. This is 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. So while it does feel like I've been in the community for ages, it's really been the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, 5 years or so that I've really sunk my claws into the community and done what I've done. And it was somewhere in that early journey where I decided, what's the best way for me to give back to this community, and that's why I started the WP World. And so I've been running the WP World now for, I think it's coming up on 3 years, just to find a way to kind of collect the community in one place and give people the opportunity to see, what each other are doing, and if people want to have, a quote unquote WordPress resume live that they can share with anybody, then they can share their WP World profile and kind of have all of that in one place. And so that brings us all the way up to Well Played, which you have up here,
which I have up on for people to look at right now. We'll be diving into that in just a moment or so. I just clicked on it. Oh, it's up. We'll let it go.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
go ahead.
With you wearing so many different hats throughout your career, what keeps you energized after all these years working on the internet? Working on the web. I mean, it was tough. I had a loss on it for a few years, and just about a little over 2 years ago, I became re-energized in it. So.
Yeah, I think the library of projects, not Well Played specifically, but just the number of things that I'm doing keeps me energized. I think I'm just a huge proponent of side projects and using them to really learn and grow your skill set, and not just for the sake of growing your skill set. I just really like to learn new things. I like to see how things work, and there's a special reward to struggling through something for a while, and then it finally works the way you want it to work, the way you expected it to work.
You get a nice endorphin drop when that happens, don't you?
Yeah, it finally comes together and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's a real reward there, and so I think that does it for me. On top of the things that we've already mentioned, I've got a site called Flip Quiz that's for educators, and then I've got a site and an app called Ride Reply that I built for messaging between people that using their license plate numbers. So those aren't really like WordPress based things, but just continuing to have projects that sort of use some of what I know and then stretch to build on top of that to learn some new things and, figure out how to build an app and figure out, how to use AI to do some moderation stuff for some of the, pieces that I have where you can communicate with each other. And I think that's what does it for me, is just continuing to find new ways to just chase that reward of learning something new and making it happen, making it work the way I want it to work in the end.
Excellent. One of the comments in there from my marketing person asking you, do you have your armor ready and securely fitted?
Oh. Yeah, that was a pretty sweet graphic. I tried to dig through my closet to see if I could find some armor, but I couldn't find it.
You can thank Grok for that one. All I did was toss your headshot in there and give him some prompts, and that's what he produced. And I went, that'll work. All right, well,
nice animation. Yeah.
Let's dive into one of your big things here, Well Played, and this is a WordPress plugin membership site with multiple plugins in it. And tell us a little bit before we show people here on the screen here what all the plugins are. But why are you building a membership plugin library instead of individual sales for plugins? And what problems does a single license model solve for agencies and freelancers specifically?
Yeah, I think the answer to both questions is kind of the same, and that we're all kind of tired of managing 100 different licenses.
Oh God, yes.
And that goes for me too, right? On my side, on the provider of the plugins, I don't want to have a million different licenses going on somewhere that I've got to keep track of, or, obviously the site's keeping track of. But, ultimately, as the person running the site, I don't want to have all of that going on. So if I can narrow that down to one license per customer, or, if you're an agency and you're selling to your customers, still the same thing applies. I'd rather they have one license rather than, the the plethora of license that would happen from a tree like that, right? One license for the agency, then the agency sells to their customers different licenses, and here we go, we've got 20, 30, 50,000 licenses going. I'd rather keep that to a minimum for myself, but it also makes life easier, I think, on agencies and customers that are looking to do a handful of things, but not wanting to juggle licenses on top of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I fully understand that. I juggle way too many licenses, and then I forget about one or two, and then I'll quit using one, and a year later I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to quit paying for that one. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit. Scrolling down the website here, you've got a really nice. Oops, where are the plugins at? There at the top. There we go. Plugins. That's where I wanted to go. To the plugins here, you've got 12 plugins for WordPress, 6 for Elementor, and 7 for WooCommerce in here. Now, how do you decide when you're deciding to either add a new plugin into it, or which plugin ideas are worth building and being in here? Like, I was scrolling through here and I see a couple that were really useful. I'm an Elementor user, and the advanced loop editor looks like a fantastic. It could replace some of my headache problems I've been dealing with.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites and one of the newer ones too.
Yeah, and because the advanced loop is really big, especially if you use ACF with it. And, you've got several WooCommerce plugins, and while I only have a couple of clients with WooCommerce sites, there's a couple in here that would be very useful for some clients, like the trust badges and the test payment gateway. So tell us a bit about what plugins you look at that are worth building, and then what's your process for spotting gaps in the system?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I look at what's worth building in the sense of, releasing it as a plugin here, I think there's a sweet spot middle ground, right? I think I'm not looking to build like another shopping platform like WooCommerce or a learning management platform like Lifter or something. Those are far beyond what we just had a whole conversation about how I don't like to manage licenses. I also don't want to manage some giant behemoth of a plugin and all of the different nooks and crannies that go into something like that. And so, I'm hesitant to try to even bother tackling something of that scale, because I think, I think there are really good platforms out there already for that. So there's no sense in me jumping into that unless I really felt like I could do something way better than any of the ones that are out there now. And I just haven't come across a need for something of that scale. On the other hand, there's also the argument that a lot of the smaller stuff, the breadcrumbs, can be tackled by AI, Grok or Codex directly connected to websites or whatever. Right. So I wanted to make sure in building these and putting these together that it was something that's somewhere in the middle of that. Right. It's maybe a little bit more complex or complicated than someone might want to sit down and throw an AI engine at, especially when it comes to maintaining that long term. If you're a agency or something and you're building 30, 40 sites and you're tossing an AI in the direction of one and this one in the direction of the other, and you're building you're building maybe something different, maybe the same thing across a number of sites or very similar things, and AI is going to spit those out a little bit differently every time, and then you've got to maintain that, or you're creating your own plugin and then you've got to distribute that across the websites and then keep all of those maintained. And so I felt like there was a market and a gap there for kind of that middle ground, that Goldilocks sweet spot of something that's maybe a little bit more complex than what AI can very quickly do in a few minutes, right? But also not as behemoth as like a shopping platform or something like that. And so all of these kind of fall in that middle ground where it's providing some functionality. There's a good admin interface for those things to set the settings for what you need. I've thought through some of the some of the roadblocks and barriers to some of these things that would come up if you were trying to handle it by yourself with AI. So I've already done, some of the research work on getting past some of the speed bumps there. And so I felt like all of these are kind of in that space. And so that's the kind of the criteria that I have. And then your question as to where I kind of come up with these and whatnot. At Bluehost, my day-to-day job is with our professional services group, and so we're building websites for customers all day long.
Okay.
For Bluehost customers, and that is actually a fantastic source for me to see what it is that customers are looking for that doesn't have a solution or doesn't have a great solution yet.
That's useful.
So a lot of the inspiration, and I, some of these are date even further back than that. I mean, really the question as to why I did this in the first place is because I was starting to amass a library of mini plugins on my computer, and it didn't make sense for me to just leave them sitting there in Dropbox when, I could make them available to other people who might want to use them. So some of them do predate that, but as far as kind of a constant source of inspiration is just seeing what real life customers are looking for. Out in the space that either doesn't have a great solution or doesn't have a solution at all. And so, a lot of these, again, I'm not trying to overlap what a bunch of other people are doing. Most of these, if not all of them, are things where I've looked at the repository and, I'm not digging through 75,000 plugins, but of the top, 1,000 or so, I didn't find a great solution to the issue that we were having or to the to what we were trying to achieve. And so, decided to jump in and build a plugin to kind of serve that purpose.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an excellent way of getting your information and inspiration. Clients are always a good source of things, or projects. The last few projects I launched, I ended up building out additional stuff that I couldn't find the right solution for. So let's take a look at I've scrolled up and down the library a couple of times here. In this library, can you point out one or two really good or more practical tools for the people out there? I mean, I've spotted what I think are some, but let's see what you've got here. Maybe one from the WordPress component, the WooCommerce component, and the Elementor component, and I'll highlight them here on the screen.
Okay. Not to go in alphabetical order, but one of the newer ones that I have added is Admin Bartender. And I really like that one. If you're a Mac user, you've probably heard of Bartender before, which kind of takes the icons that are up in your top navigate, your top, file. I don't know what that bar is called on a Mac. The admin menu, basically.
The admin menu.
Mac.
The admin menu at the top bar.
You got all those icons and they start to pile up, and Bartender kind of hides those away for you. And so I basically created the same type of thing for WordPress. So as that admin bar continues to kind of pile up with lots of things for your analytics plugin and your forms plugin and query monitor and everything else up there, it starts to get a little crowded. And so I built Admin Bartender, which helps you choose which of those menu items you'd like to kind of collapse under a drop-down menu instead.
Oh, wow.
And that keeps everything a little cleaner up there at the top.
Virtually all my websites have got that problem.
Yeah, you can do it on a global setting, or individual users can also have, if you have different admins or different users that have different needs, then you can do it on a user by user basis as well. And so you're not getting rid of those icons, or menu items, but you're kind of folding them into a drop down to kind of clean things up there a little bit and make it a little bit more, a little bit cleaner. That also comes with an option to auto hide the admin bar, where you like a dock, it'll slide out of the way, and as you get your mouse closer, it'll come back in. So if you just want to not even look at the admin bar while you're surfing around, you can do that as well. And then I think there's also a couple of settings for you to temporarily hide everything for like 45 minutes or something, and it'll just dump everything into one drop down, but not leave it that way forever. It'll come back. It's just kind of a peaceful mode for you to kind of get everything out of the way.
Oh, that's
at
good.
Once.
That can help when you're doing your design work and whatnot. Get it out of the way.
Just get it out of the way for a little while. Yeah, absolutely. I think that one's good. I think Markdown block editor here came out of actually a use for this site. I didn't see a real great way to put Markdown into your WordPress site, and so I'm using Markdown for all the docs, all the documentation for these plugins. And this made it nice and easy for me to, like, you can paste in your Markdown and then it'll render it out as HTML on the front end. There's a little preview toggle. There's a few settings for you to be able to increase or decrease your heading levels throughout the whole thing really easily, and change, code highlighting colors and stuff like that a little bit. So that came out of that. And then Plugin Manager Pro is another one that I really like. That there's just some mini plugin gripes that I've had forever, and I finally decided I was just going to solve it myself. So Plugin Manager Pro allows you to upload more than one plugin at a time when you're dealing with plugins. So you can upload 5 or 6 plugins. If you have a bundle of plugins that you put on every site, you can upload them all at once, activate them all at once. And then I've had lots of times where I wanted to toggle plugins on and off, where I wanted to toggle one on and another one off, and I had to do 2 steps. So this way you can just check both of those and say toggle active or disabled, and it'll toggle those. And there's a couple of other features in there, being able to save plugin bundles and download plugin bundles, or download individual plugins and stuff. So just basically a WordPress plugin manager that I think does a pretty good job of handling some of the sort of mini gripes that I've had with the plugin menu for years.
Yeah, I've just worked around them, so I didn't know something like that existed. Okay.
Yeah. On the Elementor section, you already noted Advanced Loop Editor.
Oh,
That's one of my favorites, just because I got tired of doing every custom loop in code and then giving Elementor an ID. There's got to be a way for us to do this all in the menu. So
that's what I almost started building something on my last project because I had to do some serious custom loops. It was irritating.
Yeah, this does a pretty good job. Lets you do some filtering and sorting and all of that by ACF fields and whatever else you got there. So definitely worth checking that out. Gallery Grid Pro I really like, because it kind of, like I said, my first love is design, and Gallery Grid Pro allows you to do some more complex gallery designs, and it uses grid and allows you to kind of drag and drop how you want galleries to look in Elementor.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
allows for dynamic loading of galleries. So if you have a custom post type that has 6 images across every single one of them that you can upload, and they'll dynamically pull the images into the grid setup that you have, and then you can modify that on a mobile and tablet view as well. So you have each of the breakpoints to kind of play with those. Let me jump down to WooCommerce. Let's see, what's my favorite WooCommerce one? Test Payment Gateway came out of a real need. I was surprised that there wasn't a better Test Payment Gateway plugin, but it literally does one thing and does it well, and that is allow you to choose how you want payment to go through, whether you want it to successfully complete or give you an error based on a number of different invalid card type or whatever, and then that way you can log that and see how the site is reacting to those different errors. But at its core, it allows you to generate orders very easily, because you don't have to type in any card details or anything. You can just say successfully complete and complete the order. It's great for testing.
That sounds like a perfect thing for a dev site.
Yeah, exactly. And then thank you redirects came out of another need for actually a freelance client of mine.
I saw that one.
And that allows you to redirect to a different thank you page based on cart products. And that way you can kind of set up a whole number of pages for, thank you for ordering this, that, or the other products. Really great for like membership stuff as well. So if you have a membership product, you can kind of hop over to a membership page. Here's now what you just unlocked by becoming a member versus, a product that somebody buys on your site that doesn't require maybe that same level of info afterwards. So Yeah, those are just a handful. Like
Yeah,
you said,
well,
there's
you-
25 of them here so far, and I personally have a use for every single one of them. Obviously,
There's,
that's why they're here.
I only skimmed it when I was researching it, but it looks like there's more there that I can use than I thought I could. So
Yeah, that's my hope. My hope, and I'm sure we'll talk about the license membership plan setup in just a minute.
Well,
but
that's
my
where
hope
we're-
is
that's
that
where we're going
everyone
next.
finds. Yeah, my hope is that everyone finds at least a couple of things that that would be useful to them or their clients.
yeah. So while you've been building all of this out, and what kind of lessons and getting it promoted, getting the memberships, managing the memberships in them, any surprises in the maintenance, the user adoption, or finding that what builders actually wanted?
Yeah, little surprises along the way on all of those things. I think the biggest obstacle that I hadn't really considered beforehand is just how all of these kind of factor together into one bundle license. Being able to get, there's a well played plugin as well. That is the library plugin. So, you install that on your website, and then all of these are available within your WordPress site. So you're not coming back to the site here to download plugins individually.
That's very useful.
Yeah, so that was kind of the big thing that I needed to figure out. That was a little bit of a surprise. Maybe not a surprise, just something I hadn't really thought about beforehand was, how do I make this the best user experience for people who want to take advantage of this is, building that actual library plugin that you put in your website that then gives you one-click access to everything that's available in the collection here. And so, yeah, once you install the plugin and give it your license key, it shows you all of these plugins inside your WordPress install, and it's just a one-click install to put it on your site. So having the connection there from this site that houses all of those plugin files and everything and all the versions and versioning and all of that, to then being able to connect that to any site that has a valid license and be able to easily install those with a click was kind of a nice big. That was my big learning piece for this, was how to kind of have that connection, that bridge between the site and the actual library plugin.
Right.
And that was one of the big rewards right there. Once I got that working to where, I had an install and I clicked it and it installed it, and then I created an update at the site and it saw the update and it allowed me to just one-click update the plugin. That was the reward I needed to keep going down that path.
Well, it sounds like you solved the problem, and that makes it a whole lot more enjoyable. Because I know I've purchased plugins where they had multiple stuff before, and then I had to keep going back to their site for all the individual ones. And I've gotten the ones like you, built a library, I installed their library plugin. It's like, oh, I only need this one, and I need that one, not the other 10, 15, 20, whatever there are. And it makes it a lot easier. That makes it a lot easier. So install one, and then it accesses all the rest of them. So while you were building it out, or while you were getting this launched out, what was one of the biggest challenges you found in facing getting your growth, figuring out your pricing, balancing the sustainability of this as a long-term project? What sort of things did you run into?
Yeah, I'll start with the sustainability. I think the sustainability part of it is just making sure that I am just super organized on file structure and all of that on my end, because that just makes a huge difference in making sure that nothing gets lost in the chaos of running a business or just running WordPress itself. Staying super organized is super important there. As far as the growth and pricing, I think the pricing is still, I wouldn't say I've nailed it. I think I'm pretty close to where I want to be. I wanted to make sure that I was providing enough value for someone that was coming to, again, like I said a couple minutes ago, my hope is that you find at least 2 or 3 plugins in that collection that you can use, across your projects. So I kind of priced it that way. I didn't price it like you're buying 25 plugins because that would have been kind of an astronomical price. But I also know the amount of work that it goes into building and maintaining these plugins and
Right.
the library plugin and all of that itself. So I needed to make sure, obviously, that that the pricing lined up so that, I'm at least compensated for the work that's being done to keep these maintained and incentivized to keep them maintained, right? If I'm not making any money on any of this stuff, then the incentive to continue to keep it maintained and add features and add plugins and all of that stuff doesn't work either. So I think I found a good kind of middle ground. I'm realizing during this conversation that this entire site is middle ground of what makes a good plugin, middle ground of site licensing.
Well,
I live in that Goldilocks space, at least for this project, I guess.
well, that's where you want to be. You want to be in that that comfortable zone for a large chunk of builders, developers out there to make their life easier and provide them the tools that they need to do the job. And it's like I said, I've been doing this. The hardest part, as you've mentioned, the hardest part is getting the pricing right. I've been doing this show since before WordPress hit 10,000 plugins in the repo. My first show actually only had 9,600 plugins in the repo. And that was
that's a little while ago.
It was a tad bit. I've been doing it quite a while. So, but what I've seen is the evolving of the ecosystem and how people charge or try to charge or get paid for it. And I've also seen some really good developers say, you know what, this ain't worth it. And they walk on to some other career, leaving behind what could have been brilliant plugins. So.
Yeah. And I think if anything, pricing, I think I've got to a comfortable place. If there's anything that I would say is probably the hardest part so far has been kind of cutting through the noise and getting the word out about Well Played. So I appreciate you having me on to talk about it here.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's been one of the tougher things. For me, I think I also have the benefit of this not being, this isn't, at least currently, my sole gig. So I can continue to keep this going, even if it's not paying the bills, because I've got other, I work at Bluehost and I've got other projects and stuff. And as long as those continue, then I can keep working on this. Obviously because of the WP world, one of the biggest things for me is also just kind of giving back. And so, if this ends up being a way that I also help give back to the WordPress community, then, that works for me as well. Yeah.
Well, let's do a nice little segue on that into WP world. Just because we're here, we'll talk a little bit about it. I know I discovered it shortly after I recommitted back to working in the WordPress community and put my profile up there. I had to go through all my archives to find all this stuff because I'd participated. Most people don't know, but Victoria, where I live here in Canada, we were the first WordCamp in Canada. And we did WordCamps for 3 years in a row. And then they changed all the rules, and the people who put it together went, you know what, we're done. And they went off and did their own thing. And nobody else wanted to. Nobody else wanted to pick up the banner. It was a real tough. It's real tough to run one of those. So at any rate, so I spoke at the early WordCamps here in Victoria, and I did a lot of things. So I had to dig through my archives to find all my old stuff for it. So it was kind of cool. So it was nice to put that out, and because of that, I've actually discovered a few other WordPress people located in my general zone. So
yeah, I love that. That's my favorite thing, is hearing people say, oh, there's a person over here that I didn't even know existed, and they're, right in my backyard. Actually, I have the exact same story from, shortly after I launched it. There's an agency, a very small agency, but an agency that's about 30 seconds from my house that I didn't know existed. And they signed up for the WP world. And I was like, here's another person that's doing what I'm doing in this space. And we're within, going to get coffee together distance. And I didn't even know it. And so, we've been able to make some new friends there. But yeah, I've heard so many stories of people that said, I signed up and I looked at my area and didn't even know these people were here. And now I've been able to reach out and either start a meetup or, grab some coffee with people or anything like that. And that's the overarching goal of this project, is just to continue to connect people in the WordPress space in person as much as possible, because I think that there's so much value to people meeting up in person and having conversations about the project and their businesses and all of that. And so the more I can facilitate people discovering each other in their own neighborhoods, or I mean, a huge part of the site is events, facilitating people going to WordCamps together and having those conversations, I think the better off we all are. And so that's kind of what drives continuing to build this site.
It's a great way to have given back. I used to do the local WordCamp or WordPress meetups, not WordCamp, WordPress meetups. I ran WordPress meetups here monthly for about 5 years. And I used to get in guest speakers and education and all kinds of really cool stuff for them.
Yeah, you mentioned WordCamps being hard to run. Meetups are easier, but they still take a bit of effort. And finding speakers is one of the hardest parts.
Finding speakers and then finding a space that's affordable.
Venue, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And someplace where you could actually have people gather and be able to work on their laptops, because they want to take notes while they're doing it. So yeah, it was always a challenge. I actually mostly ate the costs myself. But that was my way of supporting the community at the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I hope anyways, that the people appreciated that and appreciated having a meetup space to come to, because it's gotten really hard to be able to do that post-COVID.
Did. Well, that was what killed them for me, was COVID killed them. I had like 7 meetups all scheduled throughout that year, and it's like every one of them, poof, and I went, oh. And I, of course, after that massive event, I had changed my life and I'd gone on. I was no longer organized enough to do that. Because it's a rhythm.
Unfortunately, that's a very common story. People they finally had a break and forgot how nice it was to have a break. Yeah, and some of them didn't come back because of it. And, that's my hope, is that I can surface some of those that do exist through the WP world and stuff, so that people can continue to meet up in person.
Well, that's the hope. At any rate, a couple other quick things on your broader work in the community ecosystem. You've spoken at events and co-hosted podcasts. What role does community involvement play in production and staying grounded on those things?
Yeah, those are huge. I mean, I think, again, like I said about meeting up in person and stuff, being an active part of the community. I see a lot of people question, is it worth going to a WordCamp? Is it worth being there? I can see the sessions on WordPress.tv. Are the sessions really that great? One, I would say that the sessions are good. Generally speaking, the WordCamp organizers do a lot of really hard work to try and get as good a sessions as they can. Yeah. But for anybody who cares about the project, being in, it's more about what you can give at those events than what you can take away from those events, I think. And it sounds a little altruistic, but really, I mean, it's self-serving too. If you can show up and get what's on your mind put on a roadmap for WordPress to make it better for yourself, then that's where I think you should be. And so absolutely. I encourage as many people as possible to give altruistically, but also give selfishly, right? I mean, give your opinion, because then you have a say in what goes on with the project and how it turns out, and that way we can do something about it instead of complaining about what's wrong with WordPress. Let's all get involved and fix it. And
absolutely.
I think that people have been doing a much better job of that over the last year or so. I've seen a lot of involvement.
The last 2 years, I've saw a lot of improvement in the last 2 years. It's since even my show was lacking for a long time. I was still doing it every week or so, but I wasn't putting in the significant efforts that I do now. So let's move on to a little bit here with your role at Bluehost, focusing on agencies and direct working with clients and stuff. What kind of trends are you seeing in how teams or individuals build and support WordPress sites today?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious is certainly the case that more and more people are looking at AI and how they can incorporate AI into both their websites and their workflows. You know, whether that's AI being installed on my website so that I can have a chat assistant, right, that helps me answer questions for customers at the website, or even book appointments and stuff like that. Those are becoming more and more of an expectation than they ever were before. And then we also are seeing a lot of people that are coming to us saying, here's what I was able to cobble together with like a Lovable or Replit type thing, using AI, but I can't get it to do this, or it doesn't have a store, or how do I turn this into a membership site, or people's ambitions are maybe a little bit more lofty than what some of the AI pieces are able to put together, beyond kind of simple infoware sites. And so we're seeing a lot of that, a lot of how AI gets incorporated into both the business itself and the websites.
Very nice. Yeah, well, of course, most people that do the coding now use AI. AI has allowed me to actually produce code. Well, I could always understand it, read it. I couldn't type it worth crap. But it's allowed me. I launched a website a few weeks ago for pet tracking, and it's bridged off of the paid membership pro plugin, but I needed an additional function, so I had AI help me write everything that needed, and it turned into a pretty more hefty plugin than I anticipated when I first started it. But I incorporated using paid membership pro, advanced custom fields, and my plugin that taps into both of those to create a custom section for the users on the membership site.
Yeah, I think the key there, though, is that you have a development background still.
Yeah,
even if it is just being able to mostly read the code and see what it does, you have both the ability to kind of look at the code that AI spits out and say, is this doing what I want it to do? But you also know where the roadblocks are in writing code, and know how to prompt AI around those roadblocks. And that's, I think, where, at least currently, I speak to a lot of, WordPress developers, just developers in general, and they're maximizing AI usage like crazy, which is totally understandable. But then you look at, folks like, just some of my friends who are not in the web space, right? They're not savvy web. They have an idea, but they don't even know where to start, or where the roadblocks are going to be, or how to get around those roadblocks. The best they can do is, give me a nice looking website for a site that does, XYZ. The functionality is not there. They don't know how to get there. And so I think, at least for now, the main, more of the power of doing that kind of thing still falls in the hands of people who have been developing, even if you've not. I wouldn't consider myself a senior developer, but I know enough code and know enough about how the code works and where the roadblocks are to be able to leverage AI to get it to do the things I want. For example, the Ride Reply app that I was talking about earlier, I'm not an iOS app developer. I don't know how to code an iOS app, but I know basically what goes into an app being coded, and where, what the limitations of an operating system for an iPhone are. And so I can kind of navigate my way around through a conversation with Codex on how to put a fairly simple app like that together. And I'm doing the same thing now with the WP World. I haven't really shared a whole lot about that, but that's on the table for something that's going to be released hopefully by WordCamp US is my goal.
Well, that'll be cool.
But yeah, it'll incorporate, being able to look up the people in the space that you want, find nearby based on your current location, which I think is one of the more fun features that the app will have, and then the WP World already has a messenger where you can message each other,
Right.
and it'll do language translation between the two people having the conversation. So, let's say you know Spanish and don't know English, you and I can still have a conversation because the messenger will see that it needs to be in English for me to read it, and it needs to be in Spanish for you to read it. And you can reply back in Spanish, and it'll make it English for me, and I can reply back in English, and it'll make it Spanish for you. And that'll all be built into the WP World app as well. So you'll be able to message each other without needing to know each other's languages. So
that's ambitious.
I wouldn't have been able to build that if I didn't have AI assisting, but it's definitely opened up doors like that for me to be able to do that for the space.
Wow, excellent. All right, well, this is where we're going to try to wrap it up a little bit here. Give us real quickly, what was your favorite well-played moment in WordPress community, or a plugin hack that still makes you smile?
Best moment or plugin hack that still makes me smile. Good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Plugin hack.
It's always hard to grab something like that out of the ether.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time coming up with one right now.
That's all right. Understandable. I think my most favorite one was when I figured out how to make that membership site work by finding just the right membership system, so I didn't have to build that.
Yeah, that's the trick, right? Again, and that's why with Well Played, I'm not redoing WooCommerce, I'm not redoing Elementor, but I've got pieces in there that leverage what's already there, and then kind of extend that to do the things that, to be honest, I think it should just be doing already. But
that's the best part, is when you can take what exists and just put a patch on it and point the flow in another direction. All right, well, this is where we'll wrap it up, and you get to tell everyone. They've already seen your website real good here if they've been watching on YouTube. For those listening to downloads, we'll let Marcus here tell you where he can find you, and or where he can find where you can find him.
Where I can be found.
Where Marcus can be found.
Yes.
As my ADHD brain flips the words around. Nothing worse than being ADHD and dyslexic at the same time.
All good, all good. Yeah, I'm most easily found if you just want to have a conversation, probably on Twitter. Marcus D. Burnette is where I am there. You find me on the WP World. If you just search for Marcus on the WP World, you'll find literally all of the places that you can find me from there, because that's the purpose there, is to give you all of the communities that I'm in. And then if you're interested in checking out some of the plugins that we talked about, WellPlayedWP.com is where you can find this.
Excellent. And all these links will be in the show notes for those people, and the show notes will be up within a few hours at the end of the show. And that's all we got. Don't run away, Marcus. We're going to play our extra here for people, and a little bit of music, and then I will be right back to you.
Thanks.
No, that's the wrong one. Got to find my tabs here. Here we go. All right. Now a little extra, and we'll be right back.
Reminders for the show. All the show notes can be found at wppluginsa2z.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the newsletter for more useful information delivered directly to your inbox. WP Plugins A to Z is a show that offers honest and unbiased reviews of plugins created by you, the developers, because you support the show. Help keep the show honest and unbiased by going to wppluginsa2z.com/donate and set the donation level that fits your budget. Help us make the show better for you by subscribing and reviewing the show through your favorite podcast app. You can also watch the show live on YouTube at WP Plugins A to Z, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of all new videos. You can also follow the show on X at WP Plugins A to Z. John can be reached directly through the website wpproatoz.com or email him at john@wppro.ca. Amber can also be contacted through the website at wpproatoz.com or email her directly, amber@wppro.ca. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
Alrighty, folks, that's all we got. Take care now. Bye bye.
Oh my god, that is amazing!
Oh no. Obviously we just lost this